Now, to most of those taking part in Easter celebrations this Sunday, the name Egeria probably means very little, which is a shame, because the 4th century nun of that name is probably responsible for much of the shape and content of the Christian festival as we know it today. A sort of spiritual anthropologist of the ancient world, Egeria travelled widely, alone and often at great risk, throughout the Holy Land and beyond, noting the variety of Christian customs and practices. These she wrote down exhaustively in a diary, which has had a lasting effect on the devotional patterns of Holy Week. The Reverend Chloe Breyer, head of the Interfaith Centre in New York, told me earlier why we really should be taking more notice of this extraordinary woman.
Egeria is one of the more mysterious of the church matriarchs, someone who is clearly a very adventurous woman of some means, whose curiosity matched her piety. She is an unusual person who many people think was part of a early community of women, probably based in Galicia in Spain, but unusual because she's also got some access and the ability to order Roman troops around, because she sets off in 384 or so to go on pilgrimage to the Holy Land, and this is not a trip for the faint of heart at the time that she goes. She visits Mount Nebo at various places in Mesopotamia, Mount Sinai, and then concludes her trip in Jerusalem itself. And she goes in such a way that one thinks that she's quite a brave soul. And she not only does this, but she keeps a terrific track of her daily adventures and writes back to her community of sisters in Spain on everything she does.
And what is the variety of Christian custom and practice that she unearths and sends back to her sisters in Spain?
Well, one of the more exciting things, and I think it's such an oversight that we don't know this, this isn't more well known, but really so much of the Easter week liturgy, the Holy Week practices of the Palms, and on Palm Sunday, the veneration of the cross on Good Friday, we owe to her and her journal notes. And I want to read to you a passage of the description that she has of watching what we now would recognize as a Palm Sunday liturgy. But at the time, she's really taking notes on a new thing in Jerusalem. And it goes as follows, according to Egeria. As the 11th hour draws near, all the children who are gathered at the top of the Mount of Olives, including those who are not yet able to walk because they are too young and therefore are carried on their parents' shoulders, all of them bear branches, some carrying palms, others olive branches, and the bishop is led in the same manner as the Lord once was. In the Gospel accounts, if you remember, Jesus rides to Jerusalem on a donkey. From the top of the mountain as far as the city, and from there through the entire city. Everyone accompanies the bishop the whole way on foot, and this includes distinguished ladies and men of consequence.
Now, it's very interesting that all those observations were related, as it were, woman to woman, as she travelled through a man's world. They were reported back as the first formal writing by a woman at that time. How influential were her writings?
They were really rediscovered a few centuries later and then passed down. They made their way, though, into the early descriptions of the Holy Week liturgy.
Now, as a woman in a man's world then, she was clearly before her time. But do you think she's a woman of our times?
I think she's an extraordinarily timely woman because, unlike many of the saints, she's someone who's not known perhaps so much for her deep piety or martyrdom or acts of healing. It's really her intrepid nature that gets her as far as it does. And that the gift that she's given the church in the pilgrimages that we make each week, each Holy Week of the year, is a great gift that didn't come about through huge suffering on her part. Rather, it came from her based on her wonder at creation.
And if she were here today, where would she be setting off for now?
Oh, I think she'd head to Iraq or Afghanistan, to be honest. There are many places that people of faith wish to go, would like to go places that offer us something, tell us something about what humanity is in its multiple and diverse ways.
Chloe Breyer in New York.